विजय भाई म्यूटेड।
मनसुख भाई आवाज आ रहा है आपका? यू गो अहेड।
यस यस
Yes, start.
थैंक यू। हेलो, ऑडिबल?
हाँ मनसुख भाई, प्लीज कंटिन्यू.
Yes, yes. Thank you, our dynamic president, Sri Sri Vijay Bhai Keval Ramani ji. Thank you. And good morning, friends. On behalf of Tax Friends Mumbai, Tax Practitioner Association Thane, Josh Professional Foundation, IT Bar Income Tax Bar Association Varanasi, Income Tax Bar Association Prayagraj, and Legal Relief Society Calcutta, Bhiwandi Tax Practitioners Association, and India Investor Club. I welcome you all for this fantastic webinar. Friends, first of all, I would like to take this opportunity and to personally thank Sri Vijay Bhai Keval Ramani ji for his never-ending efforts for bringing us all together and helping us to gather knowledge on various subjects and various matters. Friends, today's topic is Benami Transaction Prohibition Act 1988. And is going to be taken by Sri senior most and respected chartered accountant Sri Pankaj Agarwal from Lucknow. It's an honor for me to introduce Sri Pankaj Agarwal. He is a practicing chartered accountant and LLB. Sri Pankaj Bhai is in practice for about 36 years as a partner in Mittal Gupta and Company Chartered Accountants, Kanpur, having offices at Lucknow and Kanpur. Friends, now about his professional membership. He is a member of Lucknow Chartered Accountant Society. He is a member of Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, the Chamber of Tax Consultant Mumbai. He is also a member of All India Federation of Tax Practitioner Mumbai, Forum of Free Enterprises Mumbai, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal Bar Association Lucknow, and also a member of Lucknow Chartered Accountants Practitioner Association. Sri Pankaj ji is not only the member, but he has also been in a key position in various professional bodies. He was a chairman in 1988-89. He is a vice chairman in 87-88. He was a secretary in 86-87 and treasurer in 1985-86 of Lucknow branch of Central India Regional Council, CIRC of ICAI. Pankaj was also a founder president of Lucknow Chartered Accountant Society in 1998-2000. Being a respectable member, Sri Pankaj Agarwal has not only professionally but also academically contributed to our society. Some of his major contributions are: he was a member of study group of CIRC for preparation of guidance note on tax audits, draft company bills, guidance notes on audit of consolidated financial statements, guidance note on income tax computation and disclosure standards. Pankaj has also edited annual publication on Union Budget published by Lucknow Chartered Accountant Society for several years, from 1999 to 2004. Pankaj has authored and presented technical papers in seminar, conferences, workshops, a refresher course on the subject of accountancy, auditing, direct taxes, corporate tax, and Right to Information and Technology Act as well. Pankaj has chaired a technical session at seminar of Lucknow branch of CIRC of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. Pankaj is also a group leader of a residential refresher course organized by Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, Bombay. He was also a trustee of a Brain Trust session, Lucknow Chartered Accountant Society. Sir has written various articles on taxation and were published in various professional journals. Sir has authored a book that is Commentary on Prohibition of Benami Property Act 1988. And Sir is also a guest speaker in direct taxes in Regional Training Institute, Lucknow. With this introduction, I would like to welcome Sri Pankaj Agarwal ji from Lucknow to all of you. Sir, welcome and all yours. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mansukh Bhai, for giving an elaborate introduction of mine. Office bearers of Tax Friends Mumbai, Tax Practitioners Association Thane, Josh Professional Foundation, Income Tax Bar Association Varanasi and Prayagraj, Legal Relief Society Kolkata, India Investor Club, and Bhiwandi Tax Practitioners Association Bhiwandi. And I am grateful to all of these associations for giving me this opportunity to share my views with you on the subject of this Benami property. I will take a few seconds to share my presentation before I start. Before I start, friends, I will like to have some historical perspective of the Benami law. First, I like to confirm I am audible now. Mansukh bhai,
Yes,
can
sir.
you
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
audible
Yes,
as
sir.
well as-
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
First thing is, as per Constitution, Article 31, everyone was have a right to property. It was a fundamental right. But this right was taken away from 20th June 1979 by Constitution's 44th Amendment Act. So at present, though there is no such right as a right to property, but till 79, it was a right to property. And therefore, the courts have held that holding property Benami was not illegal at all. It was illegal as the transfer of property does not require that property should be in one's own name only. So there was no statutory provision, but by judge-made law, it was held that there is no such thing which make holding of property Benami as illegal. Because of this right to property being a fundamental right. Prior to enactment in 1988, what was the situation in our country? I like to just take few slides on that. Benami transfer or transaction means the transfer by or to a person who acts only as the ostensible owner in place of the real owner whose name is not disclosed. The question whether such transfer or transaction was real or Benami depends upon the intention of the beneficiary. The real owner in such cases may be called the beneficiary and the ostensible owner the Benamidar. I think it does not need much elaboration. हमने किसी और के नाम में प्रॉपर्टी खरीद ली, लेकिन हमारा इंटेंशन नहीं था कि ये प्रॉपर्टी उसकी बने या वो मालिक बने. प्रॉपर्टी हमारी थी, लेकिन हमने नाम किसी और का दे दिया, ऑस्टेंसिबल ओनर वो हो गया और हम उसके थ्रू आउट बेनिफिशियरी बने रहे. एनेक्टमेंट के पहले ये स्थिति थी. इस तरीके की बेनामी प्रॉपर्टी हमारे यहाँ बहुत थी. Out of sacrosanct, some sanctity, people used to have properties in some other's name, some family member's name, some God's name, and even I am told that sometimes property were taken in the name of pets also. So, what was its effects on Benami transfer? The courts have held that a person does not acquire any interest in property if it is a Benami property merely because property was existing in his name. The Benamidar has no beneficial interest, though he may represent the legal owner as to third party. A Benami transaction was legal except in certain specified situations. This I am talking about situation prior to enactment in 1988 when there was no such law which has prohibited holding of Benami properties. This is a quote from a Privy Council decision. What was the historical perspective? In historical perspective, what the Privy Council has said, Federal Court, a practice has long been common in the country for intending alienees of land to take the document of transfer in the name of their friends or relatives, or sometimes with a view to defeat the claims of creditors, sometimes with a view to avoid claims by other members of their own family, and sometimes to escape restrictions imposed upon them by government servants' conduct rules, etc. These are the various reasons for which the properties were held Benami. Just to avoid creditors, अगर प्रॉपर्टी हमारे नाम से होगी तो कभी भी इंसॉल्वेंसी के प्रोसीडिंग्स में, कभी भी क्लेमेंट्स के केस में अटैच हो सकती है. गवर्नमेंट के तमाम रूल्स रहते हैं, हम प्रॉपर्टी हेल्ड नहीं कर सकते, तो लोग अपने नाम से नहीं करके किसी दूसरे के नाम से प्रॉपर्टी हेल्ड करते हैं. दिस वाज द हिस्टोरिकल perspective and it was a very very old decision of 1942. What has been the factors which has contributed to the origination of Benami? The first and the foremost has been the joint family system in our country and desire to make secret provisions. A few days back we have heard Dr. Girish Ahuja ji on this aspect of the matter. जब ज्वाइंट फैमिली है तो सबके अंदर इच्छा होती है कि कुछ हम अपने लिए अलग से बचा के रखें, या कैसे हम कुछ अपनी प्रॉपर्टी को अलग कर लें, सीक्रेट कर लें फैमिली से बचा करके. उसके लिए कई बार लोग अपने इन लॉज के नाम से, अपने ससुराल पक्ष के लोगों के नाम से, अपने फ्रेंड्स के नाम से कुछ पैसा इस प्रकार से घर से निकाल करके या अपनी एक पर्सनल सेविंग्स क्रिएट करके उनके नाम से क्रिएट करने लगते हैं बेनामी प्रॉपर्टी के रूप में, जिससे कि फैमिली के और लोगों को पता ना चले और या और लोगों को का उसमें कोई क्लेम अराइज ना हो. दूसरा रीजन जो इसमें निकल करके आया, अभी हम लोगों ने पढ़ा, फ्रॉड ऑन क्रेडिटर्स. अगर कोई क्रेडिटर्स हमारे हैं, हमारी दिवालिया होने की स्थिति हो रही है, तो हम चाहते हैं कि हमारी कुछ प्रॉपर्टी ऐसी है जो बची रहे, जिसके ऊपर की हमें उसको क्रेडिटर्स को ना देना पड़े. तो हम किसी के नाम से, अपने मित्रों के नाम से, अपने किसी ऐसे नाम से प्रॉपर्टी को ले लेते हैं, अपनी प्रॉपर्टी ट्रांसफर कर देते हैं. दैट इज आल्सो वन ऑफ द मेन रीजन. देन डिजायर टू इवेड टैक्सेस. वी ऑल नो, नथिंग टू से. अगर हमारे नाम प्रॉपर्टी होगी, हाउस प्रॉपर्टी में एनुअल इनकम लगती है, या कोई और भी प्रॉपर्टी हमारे नाम होगी, तो उससे जो इनकम अराइज होगी वो भी हमारे हाथ में टैक्सेबल होगी. सो वी कैन शिफ्ट इट बाय holding a property in some other name so that income arising therefrom get taxed in the hands that in that name. Then the last is desire to avoid political and social risks. As we know that in our country there is a land ceiling. To avoid or escape from the rigorous provisions of that land ceiling, sometimes properties are divided, properties are held benami. If I speak in Hindi, sometime it is okay, I think.
Yes, sir. Yes, no problem.
Yes, sir. No problem.
Then in the Bombay case judgment, Radhakrishnan versus Union of India, Justice Teller has made this observation. Law prior to 1988. Now it is true that under section 80 and 82 of the Trust Act, a benamidar holds the property for and on behalf of the real owner, in consequence of which there would be a resulting trust in respect of the property in favor of the real owner. But then it would be fallacious to urge from those sections that the legal ownership in such property vests in the benamidar as it does in the case of a trustee. What those sections really mean is that the benamidar is in a fiduciary relationship with the real owner and therefore has all the obligations of a person in such fiduciary position towards real owner. A benamidar is no more than an ostensible owner of the property. He holds benami through his acts in certain circumstances would be binding upon the real owner. That is because the real owner holds him out to third parties as an owner of the property. It is, however, impossible to say, as in the case of trustee, that any right in the property either vests in him or that under section 13 and sections following thereafter of the Trust Act, any obligation therein set out fall on him. Their lordships of the Privy Council stated that so long as the benami transactions did not contravene the provisions of the law, the courts were bound to give effect to it, but they made it clear also that the benamidar has no beneficial interest in the property that stands in his name. He represents in fact the real owner, and so far as the relative legal position is concerned, he is a mere trustee for him. So this was the law prior to 1988. Prior to 1988, even this our Indian Trust Act has recognized this transaction. Basically, the thing is, we know that in Trust Act, when a property is held in the name of trustee, trustee becomes the legal title holder of the property. But when the property is held as benami, then he holds that property as in a fiduciary capacity vis-a-vis the real owner. He is an ostensible owner, but he is not a real owner. He stands in a fiduciary capacity as to a real owner. Then there were certain modifications made just to overcome the difficulties being faced because of these benami properties. One was section 66 of the Code of Civil Procedure Code 1908. The crux of this matter, the person who is making the purchase in auction will only be deemed to be the actual owner. He will not be deemed to be representing someone else. Then there was a section 41 and section 53 of the Transfer of Property Act. If a ostensible owner, being a Benamidar, transfers the property, then also it will be a valid transfer, deals with transfer by ostensible owner and provides that if an ostensible transfer transfers the property for a consideration, it shall not be voidable on the ground that the transferor was not authorized to do so. Just to safeguard the interests of the buyers, these provisions were made. In case ostensible owner makes a transfer, real owner cannot say that he was not authorized to make a sale and he has wrongly made the sale. So as to safeguard the interests of the buyers, these were the provisions made prior to 1988. In our own income tax, there was a provision in section 281A of the Income Tax Act, which is no more on existence, which has also protected such interests that within 1 year, if you inform the Commissioner of Income Tax that I am holding this property in the name of someone else, then also that will be a valid property of yours. But these sections has now been, they are no more. Then the history unfolded. In the year 1971, when Taxation Amendment Act Bill 1971 was introduced, then it was expressed desire that something should be done. Something should be done as regards Benami property is concerned. What was said, the problem of property held Benami has been causing concern to the taxing authorities for some time. The Select Committee on the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill 1969 had also suggested that government should examine the existing law relating to Benami transactions with a view to determining whether such transactions should be prohibited. This suggestion was reiterated in Parliament during the debate on the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill 1971. So for the first time, this matter was referred to Law Commission in 1971. Then what happened? Report came in 2 years, and this report was very basic and very few suggestions were made. Law should refuse to recognize the Benami character of transactions. It should not be an offense. The law should be in effect make the Benamidar real owner. This was the basic suggestion कि जो बेनामीदार है उसी को रियल ओनर बना दीजिए, बस इतना सा सजेशन था। 73 में ये रिपोर्ट आई, लेकिन जो हमारे यहाँ की चाल थी कछुए की, उसके आधार पर 73 में ये रिपोर्ट आने के बाद 88 में सरकार को एकदम से जागृति आई। Once upon all of a sudden the government woke up in 1988 and brought an ordinance on 19th May 1988 to give effect to the Commission's recommendation, 57th Law Commission recommendation. It is a very pity that our government has been so slow on such an important matters. Ordinance was having a limited scope of prohibiting any suit, claim or action or defense by the real owner against the Benami. And then what happened that before this was made a bill to turn it into a full act, Law Commission was again approached to give its suggestions before the ordinance can become act. In 1988, the time given was so short, so a brief report was given by the Law Commission. The Law Commission said in 130th report as a continuum, and what is observed, a very limited attack was directed against Benami transaction by merely refusing the assistance of the court machinery to recover Benami property by real owner. So here the Law Commission has gone into depth that it will not solve a problem merely because making the Benamidar a real owner and to shut the door legal recourse to the real owner. There need to be done something more. What the Commission suggested, encompassing the entire gamut of Benami transactions, one thing that emerges unquestionably is that the real owner and the ostensible owner were either in a fiduciary relationship or blood relationship or close intimate friendship. If such persons were the parties to Benami transactions as between them, litigation was generally not even conceived. The ordinance which follows the report of the Law Commission of 1973 merely prohibits court action at the instance of the real owner against the Benamidar or a defense based on Benami on behalf of the real owner if these close intimate friends relations would not resort to court proceedings, the ordinance does not even remotely affect them or their Benami transactions. The ordinance will remain a paper tiger, ineffective in every manner. It would be inane. This was the observation of the Law Commission in its second report, 130th report. Then what was the suggestion? Along with the aforementioned two approaches, Benami transaction should be prohibited by the proposed statute. Entering into a Benami transaction should be made an offense. This aspect was examined by the Law Commission on an earlier occasion. It is not for a moment suggested that any prosecution should be launched for the Benami transaction entered into prior to the date of ordinance. That would fail on the touchstone of Article 21 of the Constitution. What is suggested here is that from the date of the legislation, a prohibition should be enacted against entering into Benami transactions in future, and if it is satisfactorily established, a punishment should be awarded. There should be no consideration for such transaction, and power of wealth, if not curbed, is likely to destroy the power of office. And on power of wealth. Benami represents a facet of power of wealth. It has to be curbed. Therefore, such transaction in future should be prohibited and a provision for punishment should be incorporated. Now, when it became an act of 1988, it was found, we know that when we discussed this act last, this is an act of 1988, but to my knowledge, it came to limelight only in the 2016 when amendments were made to the 1988 Act. Before that, we have never discussed the provisions of this Act. This was only a power of paper tiger. What were the infirmities in this Act which has been sought to be cured by 2016 amendment? This is a this is the report of Parliament Standing Committee, which says powers of a civil court have to be conferred on the authorities under the Act. There was no such power in the old provisions. Specific provisions have to be introduced for vesting of confiscated property with the central government. An appropriate appellate structure has to be defined while barring jurisdiction of a civil court against an action taken by the authorities under this Act. Matters of procedure relating to its administration, notice of hearing to parties concerned, service of notice and orders, powers of the competent authority relating to gathering of evidence, etc. have to be provided. Then in between, in 2011, an attempt was made to replace this bill, but as it happens, bill was referred to Select Committee of Parliament. Select Committee gave its report in 2012, but thereafter the Parliament got dissolved in 2014 and nothing could happen and this bill got lapsed. So then came 2016, and for which we will be discussing because it's a very, there is a sea change in the existing provisions of 1988. Number of issues are also arising. Before I move to the provisions, I will read few paragraphs from the speech of the then Finance Minister, late Arun Jaitley ji, while moving the bill, because this amendment is changing the color and texture of the whole Act. Even though two judgments of the Supreme Court came as to which is a Benami property and which is not a Benami property. From 1988 till 2016, this law has not been put into effect. And the reason why this law was not given effect was that the law provided for two significant provisions as to the fact that if there is a Benami property, Benami transactions are prohibited and the state will have the power to acquire the Benami property. Further, that the person who enters into this Benami transaction is liable to be prosecuted. There was nothing else mentioned in the Act. When this Act went to the Law Ministry thereafter, there was no machinery provided for as to how the acquisition would take place, as to what would be the terms of acquisition. When this law was framed, it was thought that everything else would take place by virtue of rules. Probably the Law Ministry thought, and rightly so, that this could be a case of excessive delegation. There are some vital provisions in every law which have to be provided in the legislation itself. and some non-operational provisions could be operationalized through the rules itself. So the law ministry said that rules cannot be framed. So this act had to be operationalized through rules, and the rules were never framed. Thereafter, an effort was made and to begin this particular legislation subsequently. After this legislation was brought in, it was then redrafted in 2011 by UPA government in the form of amendment to 1988 bill. The reason why we want to amend the 1988 bill, the original bill has 9 sections, but a large number of sections were added. One proposal was that it should be repealed and a new bill should come in. But then, if you brought in a new bill, properties acquired Benami between the periods of 1988 onwards would have all gone scot-free. So it was considered necessary that the old law be allowed to remain and the new amendments be inserted into the old law itself. Now that bill lapsed with the lapsing of the Lok Sabha, even though it was referred to a standing committee and the report did come. Now, what is the amendment object behind? Because so far we have read that the aim has been to curtail the civil disputes, to bring in line the civil disputes, but now all the color is changing. What is the object behind amendment? So the principal object behind this bill is that a lot of people who have unaccounted money invest and buy immovable property in the name of some other person or a non-existent person or a fictitious person or a Benami person. So these transactions are to be discouraged. As far as assets held illegally abroad are concerned, from the very beginning, the effort of the government has been they should be squeezed. The use of cash beyond a certain limit should be discouraged. Unaccounted money must make way, and so the color of the transaction money itself must change. Therefore, this is an important step in that direction. It is predominantly an anti-black money measure, that any transaction which is Benami is illegal and the property is liable to be confiscated. It will rest in the state and the entrant of the Benami transaction is liable to be prosecuted. Having said that, with this background, now I have made one quick comparison between the pre-amendment and post-amendment. In pre-amendment, the name of the act was the Benami Transactions Prohibitions Act 1988. Now, to give more force to the act, even the title of the act got changed. Now the title is the Prohibitions of Benami Property Transactions Act 1988. Earlier, there were only 9 sections. There were no chapters. Now there are 72 sections divided in 8 chapters. Now it has become 73 sections because one section was added by the Finance Act 2019. So now it will become 73 sections in 8 chapters. Earlier there were only 3 definitions. Now it has got 31 definitions in the Act. Pre-amendment, there was power to acquire. The Act has given the power to acquire, but there was no procedures laid down. Who will acquire the property, how the property will be acquired, how it will be managed. There was no such provisions, but now there is a whole scheme is there. Earlier there was a power to acquire, now there is a power to confiscate. When we acquire something, then the government is bound and obliged to make a compensation for it. But when it confiscates something, there is no need to compensate because confiscation is penal in nature. Earlier, there was a provision for punishment up to 3 years or with fine or with both. Fine was not quantified, but now there is a punishment up to 7 years or with fine or both, and fine has also been quantified. There were in pre-amendment act, no authorities were provided. There was no hierarchy, no authorities were provided, but now there is a full hierarchy and jurisdiction has been provided in the act. Now I start with the new amended act, Prohibition of Benami Property Transactions Act 1988. So as I said, this Amendment Act of 2016 changes the color and texture of the pre-amended act. Even the title is changed to the the Prohibition of Benami Property Transactions Act. There are 31 definitions given in the Act, few of them which I will be discussing fastly. Attachment, Benami property, Benami transactions, Benamidar, beneficial owner, fair market value, property, and then transfer. Attachment means prohibition of transfer, conversion, disposition or movement of property by an order issued under the Act. When an order of attachment is passed by the initiating officer, it means one cannot transfer, one cannot convert, one cannot dispose, or one cannot move the property. The property has to remain as it is, where it is. Then Benami property is defined to mean the property which is a subject matter of a Benami transaction and also includes the proceeds from such property. Once, even if you have converted the property which was Benami property and has changed its color, even then it will continue to be the Benami property. The definition of property is very wide. Many times the question is raised whether Benami property is applicable only to immovable property. The answer is no. It applies to all types of property. Property means assets of any kind, whether movable or immovable, tangible or intangible, corporeal or incorporeal, and includes any right or interest or legal documents or instruments evidencing title to or interest in the property, and where the property is capable of conversion into some other form, then the property in the converted form, and also includes the form proceeds from the property. So the property has defined in the widest possible manner in which it could have been done. So I will deal appropriately at appropriate time how it can get affected generally to us. Now Coro has also one clause on Benami property. So as an auditor also we will have to be very careful and understand the provisions of this Benami Properties Act. Who is Benamidar? Benamidar means a person or a fictitious person, as the case may be, in whose name the property is transferred or held, and includes a person who lends his name. बेनामीदार का मतलब गुजराती में जैसे एक बात आ रही थी, बे मेरे ख्याल से गुजराती में दो को कहते हैं, तो जो दूसरा जो नामीदार हो गया वो बेनामीदार है. हिंदी में भी बेनामीदार जो दूसरे के लिए जो नाम को अपने ओढ़ लिया, फिक्टिशियस नेम में भी अगर है तो वो भी बेनामीदार की डेफिनेशन में आ जाएगा. Beneficial owner means a person whether his identity is known or not, for whose benefit the Benami property is held by a Benamidar. This is very, very important definition. In a Benami transaction also we will find it. If the Benamidar is holding a property for the benefit of someone else, then only it will be a Benami property. If he is holding the property for his own benefit, then it cannot be a Benami property. Fair market value, this will have a relation to in the case of a penalty provisions, because penalty provisions are based on fair market value. So fair market value has been defined to mean the price that the property would ordinarily fetch on sale in the open market on the date of the transaction, or if it cannot be ascertained, then as may be determined in accordance with Rule 3. Rule 3 has only prescribed valuation rule for unquoted equity shares, and 3 rules has been cost of acquisition, FMB determined by merchant banker, or as per formula given, whichever is higher. The 3 out of the 3, whichever is higher will be the FMB. Transfer is also defined in inclusive manner. Transfer includes sale, purchase, or any other form of transfer of right, title, possession, or lien. Even transfer of possession will also get covered here. Title, right, anything, because it's a very by way of a sale, purchase, or in any other form, if we make a transfer, it will get covered. Now coming to Benami transactions, which is the crux of the matter today. In the pre-amended definition, it was a very, very simple definition. Benami transaction means any transaction in which property is transferred to one person for a consideration paid or provided by another person. Meaning thereby there has to be 3 persons, one person who is transferring the property to someone and the consideration is being provided by someone else for the transfer of that property, then it will become a Benami property as per the old transactions. If there were only two persons, like in sham transactions, it will not be a Benami property as it was held by Kerala High Court in one of the judgments. Now you should mark the difference what has come in this. Now the new act defines Benami transactions as a 4 types of transactions it covers. The first one is the enhanced enlargement of the existing definition, as I just read. Property transferred to or held by a person where consideration is paid by other person and the property is held for benefit of such other person. What is the addition from the existing definition? The property is held for benefit of such other person. This is the addition, and second addition is held by a person. Earlier there was only a transaction of transfer was covered. Now holding of the property is also covered. That is very, very crux of the matter. What is definition of held by? This is a held by will also apply to the properties which are being held from prior to 2016 also, because held is a continuing activity. As a technical term, held embraces two ideas: that of actual possession of some object of dominion or property, and two, that of being invested with legal title or right to hold or claim such possession. So what I want to convey is, suppose in your in books of account of some person, one property is appearing, but the property it exists legally, title vests or title is with some other person. We have to examine whether that property will fall in this definition of Benami property or not. To my understanding and in my view, it will be a Benami property, because the property who is holding it by possession or by title is holding the property on behalf of or for the benefit of someone else who has paid the consideration for that. That relationship is there, and so long as original title and the consideration both are divested, it becomes a Benami property. Second transaction is transaction or arrangement in respect of a property made in fictitious name. I am told that properties are made in the name of pets, servants, some other persons, but servants are known persons, but fictitious name means pets, or in the name of Lallu Jagdar, जिसका कि कोई अता पता नहीं वो है कौन, कुछ भी लिख करके, वल्दियत लिख करके, कुछ भी XYZ करके हमने प्रॉपर्टी किसी के नाम ट्रांसफर कर दी. That will also get covered here in the second category. Third one is transaction or arrangement in respect of a property where the owner of the property is not aware of or denies knowledge of such ownership. For example, during the course of demonetization, amounts were deposited in the accounts of number of persons known to us, employees, XYZ person, and if they deny that I don't know who has deposited this money does not belong to me, then it will become a Benami property. Take another example. We have liabilities in our books of account in the name of Mr. X, Mr. Y, Mr. Z. It may happen that in 68 it might be added, but here also it may get hit because it is a property from the perspective of the other person. But the other person is denying his knowledge, or other person is not known. He is not aware. Then that also can become a Benami property, and the government may act upon such transactions treating them as Benami property. The fourth and the last is also more dangerous: transaction or an arrangement in respect of a property where the person providing consideration is not traceable or is fictitious. This provision will hit in a large way in various companies, in my understanding. For example, as I said, the example of liabilities, but take example for shell companies. We all are mostly fond of such shell companies. I am having a share in a company which I bought for rupees 2. But the face value, or say, of the share is rupees 10 as appearing in the company's balance sheet. Now the question will arise, who has paid the consideration of rupees 8? Because the company has in fact received rupees 10, but I, the present owner of those shares, have paid only rupees 2. Now the question will arise, who has paid rupees 8? And if I am not able to establish, or if that person is not traceable or is a fictitious person, then the share to that extent will become a Benami property, because this act provides for proportional treatment of the property as a Benami also. Having said so, here itself I will like to deal with the retrospectivity and prospectivity of this law. Whether can this apply to the transactions which were done before this 2016. Now you see, there are two things: transferred to or held by. Held by is a continuous act. Suppose the government today says there is a very hue and cry about Chinese products. The government today make it illegal to hold any product made in China. Can we say that I was holding this product before you make it illegal? Of course, the government will have to give you a window to dispose it of, to destroy it, or whatever, some methodology government have to provide it before making it illegal. So in 2016 Act also, before 2016 Act, in the income disclosure scheme, a window was given to everyone to declare their Benami transactions which they are holding as Benami, to come clean, so that the rigors of these provisions does not affect them. Since held by is a continuous act, and if the property which one is holding today falls within the definition of Benami transactions, in my view, it's a prospective amendment only, it's a prospective transaction only. Because you are holding it today, such property which is illegal, which falls within within all fours of these definitions, then it is appropriate to hold that as a Benami property. Transaction might have taken place, because there are rulings of courts that there will be some antecedent falling prior to the coming into force of the act. That does not make this act retrospective. So this is my understanding, this is my view, that this law, though not retrospective, it is a prospective law, but makes the property held as a Benami illegal from 2016, and those who have not opted for income disclosure scheme will badly hit by the provisions of this law. Now there are certain exceptions I will quickly go through. This is with reference to first type of transaction only, where the property is transferred to or held by. First is Karta, or a member of family, but it has to be from the known sources of the Hindu undivided family. If HUF is holding a property in the name of any Karta or is member of his family for his benefit or benefits of other members, then it will not be a Benami property. Secondly, a person is standing in fiduciary capacity for the benefit of another person and includes a trustee executor. If the property is held in the name of a person, then also person in the name of his spouse or his child, then also it is exempted, exception, falls in exception clause. Then comes the property in the name of brother, sister, or lineal ascendant or descendant. It will be out of this Benami property only when such property is held in joint ownership, and the consideration has been provided from the known sources, If you are having any property in the name of your brother, sister, or lineal ascendant, it has to be joint owner. Here I'll take a pause, but if you are taking this property for the benefit of your brother, sister, or any lineal ascendant, there is no need to be joint owner. This one should be clear. But if you are taking the property, though in the name of your brother or sister, but for your own benefit, then it will be hit by the provisions of this Benami law, and you have to be very careful that this does not fall in the definition of Benami property, not being a joint property. One more explanation is there added to this definition. This is also a very, very Bombay people and other people will be saying, this is basically covering the power of attorney transaction. If we apply the definition of Benami transactions, we will find that all power of attorney transactions will fall within the definitions of Benami property. So to give benefit or to ease out some of the difficulties, this explanation provides three conditions to give them exemption. One is consideration has been provided by the person who has been given possession. Two, stamp duty on such transaction or arrangement has been paid. And third, the contract has been registered. This is totally in line with the provisions of the Transfer of Property Act and the Registration Act, because after the decision of the Supreme Court, since 2000, amendment was brought in Transfer of Property Act and Registration Act. Any unregistered agreement, any transfer of property by power of attorney is an illegal transaction. It has no value in the eyes of law. It does not give any right to the holder of those property. So we have to be very careful as an auditor also, that now holding a property by mere on 100 rupees stamp paper or on power of attorney is not a valid document. That's why we are required to give so many information now these days in income tax return, in our Coro report, in our balance sheets, that whether title is there or not, all these things will be. Now what are basically the scheme of this Benami transactions? Section 3 prohibits entering into Benami transactions. No one should enter into Benami transactions. Then section 4 prohibits the right to recover property held Benami, that the real owner cannot go to the court now and say that this is my property, I have taken this property in the name of so and so, so he has no right in the property and give me back my property. Now this claim cannot be made by the real owner of the property before the court of law. Section 5 gives the power to the central government to confiscate the property which is held Benami. And section 6 prohibits retransfer of property by the Benamidar. If a property was held Benami, the Benamidar cannot transfer the property back to the real owner. Now it is also prohibited by section 6. The reason is that one cannot make good the default by getting the mere property transferred from Benamidar in his name. If it is done so, it is prohibited in law. These are the basic authorities: initiating officer, ACIT or DCIT, approving authority is the JCIT or additional commissioner, administrator is income tax officer, adjudicating authority is an authority appointed under section 7 of the Act. Basically now in every most likely principal commissioner range, one Benami property unit has been created within the Directorate of Investigation, and this comprises of initiating officer and approving authority and one administrator. Administrator role is to take the control of the property on confiscation and to deal with it. Adjudicating authority, one or more such authority, but presently only one authority sits in Delhi, shall consist of 2 or more other members. Qualification I am skipping. 2 members bench will be there like tribunal. This will be the adjudicating authority. I am skipping this slide. And senior member, most member to act as chairperson. And what are the power? all the general powers which are given generally, power of a court, power to requisition service of any police officer, all these have been given to the adjudicating authority. There are some authorities specified in the acts which are required to assist these authorities. It's a long list. Then come to section 23, I think it is 21, power to call for information. Initiating officer or approving authority or adjudicating authority. This power, they are empowered to seek any information from any government, central government, state government, local body, or any person or officer who is responsible for registering and maintaining books of account or other documents containing a record of any transaction relating to any property, or any other person to furnish any information in relation to any person, point, or mode matter, as in his opinion shall be useful or relevant for the purposeful of that. This power is given to seek information from various authorities who are seized with the documents, who are supposed to maintain documents, registering authorities, municipal authorities, or some other authorities. It may happen that in municipal records you might have got your name recorded, but actually the property is still in the not registered in your name. So these things they will collate and then they can get hold of you whether you are holding a Benami property or not. Then there is a rule 6.4. We know that we file every year annual information returns. That is also required to be transmitted to the initiating officer when it is received. This is also provided in the act that automatically whatever information is received by the authority, that will be passed on to the initiating officer. There is a power to impound books of account for 3 months. Then initiating officer is required to seek approval of approving authority, and extension is also with the approving authority. This is the first thing. Now coming to the basics procedures, now the actual functioning of the initiating officer or the Benami properties will start with section 23. Section 23 gives power to the initiating officer to make inquiry, and with the approval of the approving authority, any inquiry or investigation in respect of any person, place, property, assets, documents, books of account or other documents in respect of any other relevant matters under this act. Earlier there was one issue being raised that section 23, without issuance or without exercising authority under section 23, can power be exercised in 24. So the courts have, now the amendment has been brought in to plug that things which are being raised by our professional colleagues, so that there is no dispute of the authorities. Now in section 24, now the action starts. When initiating officer has reason to believe that any person is a Benamidar of any property, he will issue a notice to the Benamidar and to the real owner also if his identity is known. Here the word is our reason to believe, and we all, being a chartered accountant and advocate practicing in taxation, know what does it mean. There has to be a live nexus with the material and the information before taking action, that he has reason to believe that the person is a Benamidar. Having issued the notice, if he is of the view that as soon as the notice reaches to him, he may appropriate the proceeds or the property, then he will provisionally attack the property for a period not exceeding 90 days, but suspect has to be there. For example, he finds that money is lying in the bank, but as soon as the notice will reach, the money will be withdrawn. So he may put a provisionally attachment order that no action should be taken to that bank account till the matter is subject to inquiry by the initiating officer. Then after issuance of the notice, within 90 days from the last day of the month in which the notice is issued. Earlier it was 90 days from the date of the notice, but now from the last Finance Act 2019, it has been changed to from the last day of the month in which notice is issued. After considering your submissions, the initiating officer has got two powers. One is where provisional order of attachment was passed, either to continue the attachment or to revoke the provisional attachment. Where attachment was not done, to pass an order provisionally attaching the property or decide not to attach the property. And if he decides to attach the property provisionally, then within 15 days, he is required to make a statement of the case and required to refer the matter to the adjudicating authority. Now, if within this 90 days period, someone goes to the High Court or his action is stayed, then this period of stay will be excluded. These amendments were brought from Finance Act 2019. This will be excluded, and then the remaining period will be seen. And if the remaining period is less than 7 days, he will have a clear 7 days to act upon and to refer the matter to the adjudicating authority. Now, the role of adjudicating authority starts. Adjudicating authority will issue 30 days, will issue notice within 30 days on receipt of the reference, giving not less than 30 days time. And then after considering all the relevant material, he will held property to be a Benami property or not to be a Benami property. In case he held that the part property is Benami, then he will also determine which part is Benami or how much part is Benami, as I discussed earlier, that in case of equity capital, equity share, if he held that to the extent of rupees 8, say 80% is the Benami, he may hold so and attach 80% of the share capital or 80% of the shareholding. Similarly, within 1 year from the end of the month in which reference was received, adjudicating authority is required to pass the order. And once he has held the property to be Benami, then again the process will start for passing the order of confiscation. As in criminal matters, we know that first charge is made, first the person is held guilty, and then the punishment is pronounced. Similarly, here the provision is made, first the adjudicating authority will hold the property to be Benami, and thereafter he will pass the order confiscating the property, and such property will be subject to appellate order if the appeal is made, and all rights and title will vest in the government. Here also period of stay has been excluded, and clear minimum 60 days will be available to the adjudicating authority for passing the order. These are the sum of section, and rule 7, 8, 9 has been provided as to how the confiscated property will be managed by the administrator. Administrator is an income tax officer who is designated as administrator. He will do various acts: identification of the property, managing the property, disposal of the property. All these things has been provided in rule 7, 8, 9 of the Benami property rules. So this is about management of the confiscated property given in section 28. As per section 28, the administrator shall proceed to take possession of the property for which an order of confiscation has been made. Administrator will give notice to the person in possession to surrender or deliver possession within 7 days. If non-compliance, immediate possession is warranted. It may requisition the services of police officer for forcibly taking of possession. An appeal can be made to the appellate tribunal, and the composition is similarly chairperson and 2 members. Jurisdiction will be exercised by its benches. Tribunal will set it daily. Chairperson, retired or sitting judge of the High Court, judicial member, legal service, and administrative member will be from revenue services. I am not going much in detail about qualifications. The first appeal will be against the order of the adjudicating authority will be to the appellate tribunal. As we know that second appeal can be filed by the income tax officer also. So here initiating officer may also file an appeal before the order against the order of the adjudicating authority before the appellate tribunal if the adjudicating authority has held the property not to be Benami. One can, as an initiating officer, can also go to the appellate tribunal against the order of the adjudicating authority. The time limit given is 45 days of the order passed by the adjudicating authority. Belated appeals is inherent rights, maybe that is also provided on sufficient causes may be entertained. Time limit for disposal of appeal is 1 year from the end of the month in which appeal is received. On a substantial question of law, second appeal may be filed to the High Court. This is all about procedure, initiation by initiating officer, decision by adjudicating authority, and the procedure of appeal, forms, etc. are all prescribed in Benami property rules. Now coming to the offences and prosecutions. Section 53. It says where any person enters into Benami transaction in order to defeat the provisions of any law or to avoid payment of statutory dues or to avoid payment to creditors. The beneficial owner, Benamidar, and any other person who abates or induces any person to enter into the Benami transaction shall be guilty of the offence of Benami transaction. There are three conditions or the three reasons one has to prove to charge someone with the offence of this Benami transaction. One is defeat to provision of any law. One may be, as we know that in our country, that the one can to another scheduled caste only except without the permission of the DM. Many builders, many persons, what do? They get it transferred to some other person of the same category, scheduled caste by caste, and provides the consideration. As far as this Benami law is concerned, it's a Benami property because the property is being held by that scheduled caste while the consideration I have provided and the property is holding for my benefit. And this I did to defeat the provisions of that prohibition of property, that scheduled caste, which prohibits that law. To avoid payment of statutory dues, when we do not get the property registered in our name, it may be for avoiding the payment of stamp duty. There may be to avoid something else. It is found that if I have I am holding this property Benami to avoid payment to creditors, then also this section get triggered and one is charged with the offence of penalty for Benami transaction. Now what is the punishment? Punishment is not less than 1 year but extend to 7 years. He may be punished between 1 to 7 years of rigorous imprisonment. And also to fine, which is 25% of the fair market value of the property. Punishment for Benami transactions, one has, it is provided in offence, Benami transactions, then penalty for false information. As we know that there was a right powers given to inquire information, seek information. If such information is found false, then 6 months to 5 years punishment is for the fair market value of the property. And before launching the prosecution, there is a sanction required of competent authority. Earlier, the sanction was from CBDT, but now this last year with Finance Act 2019, it has been changed to competent authority, and competent authority has been defined to be commissioner, director, principal commissioner or principal director of income tax. They are the competent authority now for sanctioning the prosecution in this act. One more section was added last year by the Finance Act 2019, section 54 capital A, which provides that if we do not comply with summons under section 19(1), or if we do not comply or do not furnish the information as required under section 21, there will be a penalty of rupees 25,000 for each failure. This provision was not there. Now it has been provided. There is a certain miscellaneous provisions also provided. One is civil courts will have no jurisdiction to entertain any suit or proceedings in respect of any matter which any of the authorities under the Act is empowered to determine. So for this, this jurisdiction has been taken away of civil court. Rectification of power, this power is given to all the authorities under the Act. Now earlier there was only adjudicating or appellate authority, but now initiating officer also may rectify its order within 1 year from the end of the month in which order was passed. This power is there, and this power has also been made appealable within 45 days. It was not earlier, but now this order has been also been made appealable within 45 days. For launch of prosecutions or trial of offence, the courts, special courts will be designated to try the offences under this Act. Probably the government has also notified various courts which will be trying the offences under this Act. With this, I come almost to end of my presentation, but one provision I will like to deal with it before I conclude, because some of my good friends and eminent authors, and in one of the Calcutta judgment, I was surprised that this issue was taken up. There is a section 1(3) of the Act, which says the provisions of section 3, 5 and 8 shall come into force at once. And the remaining provisions of this Act shall be deemed to have come into force on the 19th day of May 1988. Reading this section, this is the commencement section of the original Act. My learned friends and one of the eminent author in his book has said that all sections other than 3, 5, 8 shall be deemed to have come into force of 19th May 1988. Though those sections have been inserted by the Amendment Act 2016, I was surprised to read that commentary, how it can happen, because there are sections which are creating authorities, which are giving procedures, powers, how they can be said to have come into force on 19th day of May 1998. Here one thing, this is relates to interpretation also. Whenever we see such dates, we must inquire, what is the sanctity of this date? Here the sanctity of this date is the promulgation of ordinance. We see that this bill was replacing the ordinance which was effective from 19th day of May 1988. In any act which replaces the provisions of the bill, ordinance, there is a date, either the whole act, if the whole act is replacing the ordinance, the whole act will come into force from the date of the ordinance, or the provisions which were there in the ordinance will come from the date of the ordinance, and the rest of the provisions will come from the prospective date. So is the case here. This act was replacing the ordinance, so this was the section. And second thing, once the act has commenced, this the commencement section has no meaning for the amending sections. Amending sections will have its force, will have its date from the date on which that amending act is coming into force. So amending act is coming into force from 1st of November 2016 as notified date. So all the provisions of the 2016 will be said to have come into force from 1st November 2016 only. Only the thing which we can say is that because of the definitions, because of the things, though they have been entered into or executed earlier, but it's becoming offense after the date of coming into, cannot continue thereafter. Secondly, the purpose of this act, amending act, to make it as an amending act was to have it, to maintain continuity from the 1988, because in some of the cases the transaction itself may be falling within the definition of 1988. So those can also be brought into within the purview of this act. It was thought fit to make it as an amending act instead of repealing the old act and making it a new act. Similarly, there are two words, transaction or arrangement, used. This arrangement is also a continuing act. Transaction may be before 1st November 2016, but if an arrangement is a continuing act, it will hit the existing provisions. It will be if you are continuing with such arrangements to hold the property Benami, in my view, it will be a prospective provisions and it will affect those transactions as a Benami transactions. With this, I think I have taken ample time of yours. I am concluding, though these are the general issues. How jurisdiction, how will be determined? The Act says location of Benami property or Benamidar or beneficial owner. Initiating officer having jurisdiction on any of the three will be entitled to initiate the proceedings. But if all the three are in three different locations, SOP says the initiating officer who initiates first shall be the initiating officer, and he should inform the other initiating officer not to move ahead with this because he has initiated the action. There are judgments if initiating officer without jurisdiction issues a notice, it will be a void of an issue. Another initiating officer may take up further, but it will be a void of an issue. With this, I come to end of my presentation, and I thank you, friends, for giving me this opportunity to share my views. And if you have any query or question, I will be happy to answer those queries. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for in-depth and very fantastic presentation and deliberation, sir. कुछ सवाल है सर, एक दो वो ले लेते हैं.
जरूर.
एडवोकेट अरविंद मिश्रा जी प्रयागराज से इनका सवाल है, व्हाट इज द टाइम लिमिट अंडर दिस एक्ट फॉर ओपनिंग, रीओपनिंग एंड असेसमेंट ऑफ द केसेस?
As far as opening, reopening concern is, there is no time limit. But once he has issued the notice, initiated the case, notice, then there is a time limit. As I said, within 90 days from the date of issue of notice, initiating officer has to conclude the matter. That's why he cannot give you much of the time. Within 3 months, he has to conclude. And thereafter, within 15 days, he has to submit the matter to the adjudicating officer. And then within 1 year, adjudicating officer has to adjudicate upon this matter.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
But there is no time limit with reference to the date. As I said, that it is a continuing thing. If you are holding the property and it comes to the government today, the government may initiate the proceeding today because the property does not lose the character of Benami property. When you take the property, once it is a Benami, it will continue to be Benami. And now it prohibits retransfer also. So now once a property is a Benami, it will continue to be a Benami property. Hence, there is no time limit prescribed that after this, if you are hold the property for 12 years, for 10 years, the government cannot take action. It is not so.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. I think there is no further question.
There is
One more is there.
One
Just arrived. Sir, if a property is held in the name of company, how to determine who is the beneficial owner of this property? Is SBO rules applicable for this? By FSC, this is RG Das ji ka question hai.
Can you explain these short terms? I am
Sir, if the property is held in the name of company, how to determine who is the beneficial owner of this property?
What is this SBO rules? What do you want to say about SBO rules?
That is what written in the query, but I'm not aware, sir. So he's basically wants to know.
You see, there are two aspects, I will say, because this is a very, very hot topic these days. What the initiating officers or what the cases have come is that they are saying that this property you have purchased from the funds, from the share capitals received from those companies who are not having sufficient resources to provide that consideration. And so it's a Benami property. They are making this, cooking up this case. They are piercing the common way. There will be 2-3 things which one will have to see. One thing I missed out, let me find it out. There is one judgment of the Supreme Court in Sasikala case where the Supreme Court has very well said that how you will determine that it's a Benami property. The first is the source from which the purchase money came, the nature of possession of the property after the purchase, notice if any for giving the transaction a Benami color, the position of the parties and the relationship, if any, between the claimant and the alleged Benamidar, the custody of the title deeds after the sale deed, and the conduct of the parties concerned in dealing with the property after the sale. So as far as property is concerned, as far as company is concerned, there are 2 aspects. One is the department is going that from where the consideration has come, and if the person who has provided the consideration are not the persons of means, or they are not able to establish that they can provide that much consideration, the initiating officers are trying to hold those properties to be Benami property. The whole thing will be how the property is being managed, who are the beneficial owners, who are enjoying the fruits of the properties, what the property is being done. If it is a residential property name taken in the name of the company, who are living there, whether you have rent it out, for what purpose you have taken the company property. If you are taken the property really for the purpose of the company, and the property has been got registered in the name of the company, then in my view, it cannot be said to be the Benami property, because on the other hand, there is my liability. There is a share capital. But here again, I will say that other part, which is your liability on your balance sheet, may become a Benami property vis-a-vis other party is concerned.
Right, sir.
Property in the company may not be Benami, but the liability side of your balance sheet may become a property which is Benami as per the definition.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Another question is from Pramod Laddaji. Dear sir, if property is owned by company, private limited, a private limited company is struck off now, what will be the status of that said property?
When the company is struck off, then who is owning the property? And how the company can be struck off? Because the company, unless and until the balance sheet is nil, it means they have not complied with the rules. Complied with filing of the balance sheet. When the company is struck off, the owner is dead, then who is enjoying the fruits of the property? Naturally, it will become a Benami property. The company was the owner and the company is dead. Now who is enjoying the fruits? How is dealing with that property? Only the company can enjoy the fruits of the property, and the best course is to get the company revived only.
Right, sir. Sir, another question is from Rajesh Thakrarji. That sir, if someone holding a property before 1988 in Benami, then whether action is possible?
In my view, yes. Actually, one thing I will say, when the 1988 Act came, there are two decisions of the Supreme Court. In the first decision, what happened, the Supreme Court said that because of this 1988 Act, all the proceedings will get affected and the real owner cannot claim their rights in the Benami property because of this Amendment Act. Because this Act restricts your rights, fetters your rights, takes away your rights of claiming your property as which was Benami. But later on, in a 3-member decision, ruled that decision and said that as on that 1988, when this Act came into force, whoever has before the law, whoever has exercised their right before the court to claim that Benami property, those rights will not be taken away. Those rights will survive and Thereafter, if somebody comes before the court, he has no right to claim the property, even if the properties were taken before 1988. So even in view of that decision, even if the property was taken before 1988, if the property is of the nature of Benami, certainly it will get hit as per pre-amended act as well as after the amendment act.
Right, sir. Sir, another question is from CA BB Mane from Pune. If someone, if some property owner are able to explain the source of funds, will it be called as a Benami transaction?
No, source is not material. Source is
Right.
not material. The purpose is why you are not having a property in someone else. Even only in exception categories, there are few persons. Your wife and child, spouse and child has been exempted. If you are having a property in fiduciary capacity, then it is exempted from HUF. Or if you are having in the name of your brother, sister, then it has to be joint property. If it is not falling in exception category, even if you prove the source of income, it will continue to be a Benami property. Maybe you have proved the source, but you may not like to offer the gain. That's why you are maybe having the property in Benami name. You may be having the property to avoid creditor's claim, to have the property in Benami name.
Right.
So it will continue to be a Benami name.
Right, sir. One more question is from Manilal Bhai Shah, that you have mentioned about the scheduled caste. Is it scheduled caste or Adivasi?
This is only I refer to a general law in UP. I am told that one cannot purchase the property which belongs to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Probably scheduled tribes unless and until DM permits that. So to avoid that, what the people do is they take property in name of their employees or servants who are known to them or who are within their control, or after having purchased the property, keep the deeds with them only. So it may be, because for Adivasis also there may be there are some restrictions, and equally that logic will apply there.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for replying these queries. I think Vijay Bhai, queries are over.
Mansukh Bhai, there is na. What is the status? The ROC has struck off more than 3 companies.
Okay, yeah, further questioning from that old question, sir.
2007. But I think the process is only to get them revived.
Right. ROC has struck off wala jo matter tha, sir.
Get them revived only. Because if you are holding a property, because ROC has struck off only those companies where there were non-compliances. They were not filing the balance sheet, they were not filing the regular return. Only those companies were struck off. And then the only thing is you have to get it regularized if you are holding the property. Otherwise तो आदमी मर गया ना, तो वो कैसे प्रॉपर्टी को अपनी जिंदा करेगा? प्रॉपर्टी का कौन वारिस मानेगा? या तो गवर्नमेंट टेक ओवर कर लेगी प्रॉपर्टी को जब कंपनी खत्म हो गई.
There is one more query from Pratik Virani. Can a Benami property be legalized by following due procedure of law?
I don't think, because the government has given the procedure in income disclosure scheme, and section 6 also restricts retransfer of the property from Benami property. And you cannot claim back your property going to the court now. That is also restricted. So in my view, because some legal brain come forward with some methodology, I am not aware, but in my view, there is no, today there is no procedure of law which can allow you to get back.
Okay. So I think the queries are over. So queries are over. Now I would request CA AR Ansari ji from Bhiwandi to propose a vote of thanks.
Hello. Good evening. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good
I am
afternoon.
audible.
Yes, sir.
On behalf of all organizers, that is Tax Friends Mumbai, Tax Practitioner Association Thane, Joes Professional Foundation, Income Tax Bar Association Varanasi, Income Tax Bar Association Prayagraj, Legal Relief Society Kolkata, India Investor Club, and Bhiwandi Tax Practitioner Association. इन सब की जानिब से मैं शुक्रिया अदा करने आया हूँ। सबसे पहले तो मैं हमारे स्पीकर सीए पंकज अग्रवाल का शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ कि इन्होंने टॉपिक को पूरे अच्छे तरीके से एक्सप्लेन किया और टॉपिक को जितने भी कम से कम 50-60 साल के जो भी हिस्ट्री थी वो सब हमें अच्छे तरह से बता दिया। और मैं समझता हूँ कि सभी पार्टिसिपेंट को ये अच्छे तरीके से समझ में आ गया होगा, कोई डाउट नहीं होगा। और मैं हमारे मॉडरेटर मनसुख वाघेला साहब का भी शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ कि उन्होंने मॉडरेटर को की कुर्सी कबूल की और हमारे साथ रहे। और मैं विजय सर का भी शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ कि वो इतने अच्छे वेबिनार अरेंज करते हैं और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि आगे भी ऐसे वेबिनार होते रहेंगे। और सबसे आखिरी में मैं पार्टिसिपेंट का शुक्रिया अदा करता हूँ जो अक्रॉस द कंट्री हमारे इस वेबिनार में पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं, उनका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। और जो भी नाम मैं बोलने से रह गया हूँ उन सब का भी शुक्रिया। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू अंसारी जी।
शुक्रिया अंसारी जी, शुक्रिया। Thank you Pankaj ji for accepting the request on a short notice, because friends, we had just 1 week for the lockdown, so I requested Pankaj ji and he accepted. Thank you Mansukh bhai for conducting the meeting so beautifully. Now just friends, a few announcements before we end. Tomorrow we have a meeting, webinar on issues in TDS and TCS under Income Tax Act by CA Rajesh Mehta from Indore. And on Friday, we would have a webinar on opportunities in bear markets and consolidations over a period of time in the capital markets by Nuresh Mirani, who is a technical analyst who comes on various channels. So all are requested to join. And from next week onwards, we will be having on Saturdays 11:30 to 1. So kindly take note of the change in timing from next week. This week we will be continuing with these two. And yes, of course, as I had said last week also, there will be one gala. So stay tuned. Thank you friends. Thank you all. Open session for all.
या विजय भाई 1 मिनट लेना चाहता हूँ।
हाँ बोलिए।
यस सर।